Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 121 of How I Built It. Today, my guest is Mihran Papazian. He is the CEO of Brushette. Brushette is a little bit different from the normal things that we talk about here on How I Built It, in that it is a physical product, and it's a physical product in the health space. So I was really excited to talk to Mihran today because it is a whole other industry, and generally I get very excited about talking about whole other industries. Mihran did not disappoint. He talks about doing things like reading the content on a bunch of American Dental Association websites. He talks about manufacturing and how he visited over 1,000 factories in China to find the right connections and the right people he needs to work with. And it's an incredibly interesting conversation. So I don't want to spoil too much of it. Mihran has lots of fantastic advice for us. His story is incredibly interesting. And I get to ask him kind of a question that I normally don't get to ask people because they are usually already web developers, specifically WordPress developers. And so I get to ask him kind of specifically about how he built his website and some of the troubles there. So let's get to the show, but not before a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Plesk. Do you spend too much time doing server admin work and not enough time building websites? Plesk helps you manage servers, websites, and customers in one dashboard, helping you do those tasks up to 10 times faster than manually coding everything. And let me tell you, I recently checked out their new and improved WordPress toolkit, and I was super impressed by how easy it was to spin up new WordPress sites, clone sites, and even manage multiple updates to themes and plugins. With the click of one button, I was able to update all of my WordPress sites. I was, again, incredibly impressed by how great their WordPress toolkit is. You can learn more and try Plesk for free at plesk.com/build. That's plesk.com/build. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of How I Built It, the podcast that asks, how did you build that? Today, my guest is Mihran Papazian, the CEO of Brushette. Mihran, how are you today?
Hi, Joe. Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. I hope I pronounced that name correctly for you and for everybody listening. We talked kind of a little bit about pronunciations before we hit record here. So thanks so much for joining me. Why don't you tell us, well, first of all, somebody from your team reached out to me and asked if I would like to have you as a guest. And I thought your idea for your company was super interesting and generally off the beaten path of what I talk about. I usually talk to developers or people who found software companies. But why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what Brushette is?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on your podcast, Joe. So quickly, I'm born and raised in Paris for 20 plus years. I've attended the school in New York for a year, and then I moved to China for 10 years. And then I learned all the grassroots of business, from manufacturing to like handling all type of products, visiting all type of factories. So really, hardware background. It created that background in me. And then about 4 years ago, I moved to LA, and then we've been specializing in designing and distributing electric toothbrushes and replacement heads. So, and Brushette is born out of a vertical, which are the replacement heads, and we just re-engineered it to make it more affordable and more hygienic for everyone to use.
Wow, that's really cool. And actually, my wife and I just not recently, on Amazon Prime Day, we got electric toothbrushes, and it set us back a little bit. And you're supposed to replace those things every, I think, 3 months or something like that. So, it's I kind of liked the birth of this idea, and I don't know anything about manufacturing really. So I'm excited to kind of pick your brain on that stuff. It sounds like you've been doing that side of things for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I mean, as far as the timing goes, you mentioned the 3 months. That's true. That's what dentists recommend. As of now, you should replace your bristles every 3 months. We've run a lot of studies that shows that the bacteria accumulation on your bristles, even after a day used, is pretty insane. So literally after 90 days, after 3 months, you're like shoving it back about 100 million bacteria back in your mouth, because that little saliva residual toothpaste, kind of like all this together with with the moisture that are in the bristles that you just rinsed, it kind of created like a breeding ground for bacteria. So we've figured that there must be something, there must be a solution that that leave everyone else here more hygienic and more healthy, to replace the bristle more often. And then we understood that with the current economy of $10 a head, or even if it's cheaper, if you get on if you hit on generic products on Amazon, it's still pricey to replace those heads. So we engineered a system where it will only cost $1 to replace the head. So
wow, that's really impressive. So maybe before we get into the research aspect of it, maybe we can kind of talk about that. Let's say I get a Brushette toothbrush. What am I looking at as far as replacement? What's the process like? You have a really interesting animated GIF here on your website that kind of shows how everything comes together. But what would I, as the consumer, be doing, I guess? Is that...
So you have the Brushette. I mean, so Brushette is really competing on the replacement head market. Mm-hmm. We do offer electric toothbrushes as well, but it's important to, like, we are literally on the replacement head market. So what happened is that we've created what we call the neck. So your current brush head has two parts. It has the neck and it has the top part with the bristles. So the top part with the bristle, we call it the brushette. It's a small brush, and then the neck is an adapter that would fit on your existing Oral-B toothbrush. So we made the Oral-B version of the neck, and then we have another adapter which are compatible with Philips Sonicare, which are coming a little later this year. So as of now, you won't have to replace your electric toothbrush to switch to Brushette. You can literally use your existing Oral-B brush and then get one of our neck. It's a one-time neck adapter that you buy, and then after that, every month you'll just swap on the fresh Brushette on top.
Wow, that's really cool. That's very smart, right? Because electronics. I mean, I got the cheap electronic toothbrush. I know that other ones go for $100 or a couple $100 on Amazon.
Right. Yeah, they go for, I think, up to 200 plus, and then you will have these great Bluetooth 7 mode capabilities with playing Spotify while you brush your teeth. Well, the thing is that it would certainly help thinking that you're cleaner mentally, but what really is touching your teeth are those bristles, and are the way they're tufted, and the quality of the stiffness of the bristle, the length, and all those tuft together, the impact that they have on your tooth, on each of your teeth. So that's really where we focused on the bristles.
Gotcha. That's really cool, and it sounds like, I mean, you're very knowledgeable about this, and you have a lot of interesting copy on your website. So, what kind of research went into not only accumulating that information, but solving the problem and finding, and understanding that there's definitely a market for this, because, there's probably some percentage of all toothbrushers that have electric toothbrushes, and then another percentage that's like, I'm paying way too much for replacement heads. So right. I would just be interested in your research process.
Well, I mean, from all the regular homework that we've run, looking at the toothbrush market, the replacement heads market, all the subscription service models. Like right now, everything is on subscription. Mm-hmm. I mean, from our toilet paper to our aluminum foil, like every single thing in a household that is coming on a regular basis got to be an Amazon subscribe and save process. Then when you look at the competition, not on the subscription service, but on the electric toothbrush and the replacement head, there is really not many people who offer a price point that we got to offer, which is $1 per head. So the research that we've run are a lot of I guess you call them street interview, like randomly hitting people in Hollywood Boulevard, which is a very, scattered and like a very, that is not necessarily representing any specific target market, but that is like the mass as a whole. Could be a lot of tourists, a lot of local, a lot of, and ask them how often they replace their toothbrush, and if they ever knew about the amount of bacteria that are on their toothbrush, and if they would like to have their next refills whenever they come, if they would like to have them delivered to their home, because they can think of when am I reaching this 3-month threshold. When is it the time to actually replace those brushettes? So we don't have those reminders. There are some reminder on the bristles that are very, I would say, on the Pedex bristles. There are some indicator. They turn from blue to white to show the wear and tear. Those come after past like 2 months. I think you will start seeing them 2 to 3 months. So we've really run a lot of micro studies, and micro meaning, a couple of 100 people answering questions, from our own direct experience. And then also we had a pretty solid consumer base of people already buying these products before Brushette was born, and under Prudental brand. So we have knowledge of the market and how often those same people were coming in and repeating their orders. They just bought it, and then the following month they would still buy like a pack of 6. So we started to ask ourselves, they might be like, why are they stacking up for? Is there going to be like a kind of a war where there will be, people who will prevent them to brush their teeth? Why are people stacking up on brush heads? And then we realized that the demand was actually here because people were actually, for a reason that we ignored, people were actually renewing their purchase of replacement heads. So from there on, we started to reach out.
Gotcha. That's really interesting. So, I've never heard anybody, I guess, on my show mention doing the street interviews on Hollywood Boulevard, but I like that because it is a diverse group of people there, right? It's like walking down Times Square and trying to interview a bunch of people, in Scranton, which is where I went to college, you get a lot of the same people, a lot of the same demographic, I should say, but not the case, right?
But that might not be. Right today we figured out our demographic. It's more like moms and early adopters, and kind of. So mom is one target. Early adopters, tech savvy would be another target. And then the third demographic that responds well are all the healthy, yoga, LGBT. And wellness kind of people who would those will be the people who would embrace Brushette as a healthy lifestyle that you can take with you, that you can swap, play with the function, etc., etc. So people who care a little more about their hygiene level. So those are people that you won't find necessarily in Times Square if you go and run a little research. But it's just that we've kind of like tried all the different avenues, from Facebook ads to actually running our own questions. The out of all these study, because that was the question, the type of research that we did. We read a lot of articles, a lot of content on the ADA website, on the American Dental Association, and figured what was the problem that they were raising. And one of the problems that they were raising, they were saying, since there is nothing that prevents the packaging and the bristles to be fresh right out there of their packaging. There is no, compliant norm from the FDA that requires your toothbrush to be sanitized and completely sterile. So we came up with the packaging, with the sterile packaging that will prevent the growth of bacteria in your of your toothbrush in the packaging. So when you buy it from the shelf, then you know that it's actually clean. So those type of problem and that were raised by the industry leaders themselves, by the ADA. We took them and we found a solution for that. So that's those type of research that were really helpful.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I don't want to spend too much time here, but I have two more questions around this. And the first has to do with you specifically found that it was moms, early adopters, and then kind of health-centric people, which health-centric people, that makes sense, right? My brother would, he's like a bit of a germaphobe. He would probably jump all over this. But and then early adopters, I'm a tech guy, right? This is interesting tech to me. What was it specifically about moms that you realized they would be good for this demographic?
Subscription box. All our audience, like our test audience, about subscription model, moms are responding better. So from all the school, even when you target school, you'll see that those are moms that are actually getting hit by these ads. So moms are the ones that are the head of the household. They're the one we're shopping for everyone in the household. So they would know if they will have to toss in 2 Brushette or 20 Brushette in that box for this month for their kid and her husband. So it's so subscription service, generally speaking, resonate a lot with moms.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. It was a mom friend of ours who told us about the Amazon subscription service when our daughter was born, and now my wife is letting me know every month what we need as far as our Amazon subscription goes. So that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Cool. And then you mentioned that you had a pre-existing audience. Was that one that you specifically built around Brushette, or maybe you said that was from another company?
Right. So we started 4 or 5 years ago in the field, and we joined the brand ProDental that is distributed. I think we're like over 40 countries. And they're like more traditional, doing like electric toothbrush and replacement heads and mouthwash and toothpaste, etc. Great design, much cheaper than the competition, and very nice looking brand, but nothing very disruptive as far as like an invention like Brushette, like a snapping system, etc. So we had the experience, the supply chain, the manufacturing, and then the audience while selling ProDental. So we're kind of leveraging that for our first Brushette customers. Cool,
very cool, and that actually is a nice segue into what I want to talk about next, which is how did you build this? And I'm very interested in the full process, right? Because again, you're building a physical product, right? You probably have to prototype. You need a relationship with a supply chain, a manufacturer, and things like that. So what was that process like? Maybe from like the first idea to execution.
Well, so in China, where again, I've been spending 10 years of my life there, full time. Our first son is born there. I've been, I don't know how many factories did I ever visited, but it goes in probably over 1,000. But the ones that I've actually worked with on a regular basis, what I like to do is I go and I sit at every single on the assembly line. I sit on the different production stage, so I understand what the pain of manufacturing this product is, what the problems are those workers are going to face, how complicated is my great looking packaging, but it's actually a real burden to make it happen and to actually do it with your fingers when you actually have to fold the paper, put this in bag, etc., etc. So for me, building the product starts in the factory, on the assembly line, with the engineers, etc., etc. So it's never I mean, it's never complete unless you actually went and validate yourself that you can do it. Of course, you will not do it as good as a worker who's been trained for hours and days to do it. But my way of doing it is going through the assembly line, and from there on to improve. I go both on the assembly line and then all the way on the other side, on the market, and talk to customers. So I can literally shape a product that the market want, and not the other way around.
This episode is brought to you by Pantheon. Starting a new project? Looking for a better hosting platform? Pantheon is an integrated set of tools to build, launch, and run websites. Get high-performance hosting for your WordPress sites, plus a comprehensive toolkit to supercharge your team and help you launch faster. On Pantheon, you get expert support from real developers, best-in-class security, and the most innovative technology to host and manage your websites. You can sign up a new site in minutes with a free account. You only pay when it goes live. That is my second favorite feature to Pantheon, only to the easy ability to create dev, staging, and live servers and push to GitHub. It's very easy to set those things up on Pantheon. So you can head over to pantheon.io today, again, to set up a free account. Pay only when it goes live. Thanks so much to Pantheon for their support of this episode and this season of How I Built It. You really understand the process inside and out, right? You can say, oh, I want this crazy good, beautiful looking packaging, but you also understand kind of the headache that the folks who are actually going to be doing it are going through, and you can probably make a determination on time, quality, right? Because if it's overly complicated, you won't hit that quality every time, or it's going to raise your costs considerably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the most important is your quality right now. I mean, people are trying to buy cheap, but people are, more importantly, I think the more it goes, the more people are trying to buy sustainable products, a product that is not going to break the next day. So yes, price factor is important, but if you deliver crap, regardless how pricey is your product and how great is your marketing, it's not going to work. So, and then the problem often with new products is that you don't have necessary quality standards to actually to get inspired from. So, for example, the snapping system of Brushette, there got to be something, like about the noise, about the, how many times you can snap in on and off. All these type of testing that you can actually run. So those are kind of standards that you have to set as you see the product evolving and getting hit like 1,000 times. Then you're like, all right, so maybe we should use this material, and maybe the spring inside should be done this way, and maybe the whole maybe we can't use that thing. But so it's a lot of testing and a lot of self determining, like as the product start coming out from the assembly line, and then you give it away to people to try, and then they have feedback, you have your own feedback, etc., and then you building from there on. Like, you want to build something that actually does not break, or if it does, at least to be honest about it, and to be so in our case, we know that it's a great thing, it's a great device. You can keep it for a year and then replace only the Brushette. I say for a year. The test that I've actually run it for 2 years. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say, yeah, for the rest of your life, you don't have to buy a neck anymore. It's still a small piece of plastic. It's still, there is a knob, there's a spring inside. It's not like a rocket science thing, but at the same time, it can very well, wear and tear too. So what we're doing is that we're replacing it, guaranteeing and replacing it free of charge. So so long as you have a subscription. So that way you come up with, like, your product, what people are getting, and then you got to stand behind it, wear another. So so that's how we're doing.
Wow, that's really cool, right? And I mean, again, yeah, it's a physical product. It's going to break down. It's not made of like titanium or whatever.
Right.
So that's cool. And again, you're mentioning a lot of things that as a software developer, I might not think of, right? Like the noise that the snap makes or the number of snaps you can get out of it. That sort of testing, right? There's a company called Studio Neat, and they make this really cool notebook called the Pen Notebook, but they also are making a clicky pen. And they actually 3D printed a machine to click this pen like thousands of times over and over again to see how well it holds up from the manufacturer. So really cool stuff like that you would never think of in software development.
Right. Well, you're kind of monkey testing when you're releasing an app. It's kind of like the same thing where you're touching that product 1,000 times. So it's it's different processes, but at the end of the day, you're trying your thing out. You're trying it out, and you're making sure it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, maybe as we're coming towards the end of the show. What advice would you give to a listener that wants to make their own product? Like, what should be their step one? At one point, should they look for a manufacturer, and what should they look for in a manufacturer?
I mean, in our case, I had I had a factory with 450 people. I was in there, so it's not really it's not the same way. But if I were to start from here with no knowledge whatsoever of manufacturing, regardless if it's in China or in the US, I would start and call my first MVP a prototype or even a drawing or anything that people can try and test without not even approaching one single manufacturer. It's very important to understand that there is a fit for your product, that there is that people would want that. If yes, don't get lured. How much are they going to be ready to pay for that? And then from then on, you have your two, like, is there a product? Yes. Can you make a profit? Yes. All right. Now start, pushing the study, start, looking for people who would work with you, for people who can come up with a CAD drawing. So you can actually get, first, you were talking about the 3D machine, like a 3D printing machine. You have a lot of shops in LA and throughout the country. We can actually do the first prototype for you, or before you jump into the actual manufacturing process. So I think manufacturing is important, is of course the most important thing. If you have everything ready and then you can't supply, then there is no point. But at the same time, it's kind of the least of your problem. If should you have validated that everything else runs smoothly, then I think manufacturing is an easy piece of the puzzle.
Gotcha. So that's great advice. Manufacturing is the least of your problems if you validate the rest of the process, right? And you said, is there a product? Is there a market? And can you profit? Because that's a really good thing, right? A lot of people, myself included, I used to think, hey, do you think this is a good idea? Was validation, but it's not. What would you pay for this is where the validation comes in. Yeah.
I mean, if you'll need a million people to pay for this, maybe it's still good at that, and maybe it's still a good idea, but you gotta make sure that you're going for that, for that size, for that big, for that risk, for raising this much money, etc. So, I mean, at the end of the day, your profit margins are important. So if it's a great idea, yes, that's good. But if you can't have any margin, if you don't have any room to even forget about manufacturing, manufacturing with the problem that manufacturing would offer, which means that you'll have quality batch default, you'll have transportation problem, you'll have compliance problem, you have a lot of different legal problems there. So if your margin is getting eaten up by those line items, I don't think your great idea would go anywhere. Yeah, so it's the two validation before jumping into manufacturing.
Yeah, and that's another important distinction to make between, I think, a physical product and software, right? Is there is cost associated with software, but that cost is mostly my time or someone else's time if I'm paying a developer. But with a physical product, there is all these steps along the way. You send it to the manufacturer. There's transportation. There's regulations, probably in your case, or maybe there's not. But I know in certain cases there are regulations that you need to pass through, at least here in the United States. And then you get the product, and if it's not up to your standard, then you have to account for that and other things like that as well.
All right.
Awesome. So I guess first, before I ask what are your plans for the future, is Brushette something that I can buy today? And if so, where can I get it?
Right now it's on Indiegogo. We have so we're not fundraising per se. We're open for pre-orders. Products are already ready. We manufactured first batch, I think, of 9 like about 10,000 products that are ready to ship right now. So we decided to open the pre-sales on Indiegogo, and then shortly after the campaign, the Brushette.com will go live with the subscription model on Brushette. So right now, if you wanted the product, you could get it on Indiegogo.
Gotcha. And with that, what are your plans for the future? This is a subscription model. So, how is that going to work? And do you have anything else in the works as far as the actual product goes?
Yeah, we have, so kind of like the goal is to start off with Brushette to get something, to get a solid consumer base of people who actually are interested to get this box every month to their doorstep. But then in this box, you can definitely add a lot of different items from the bathroom, and especially from the dental hygiene, where we are and we want to stay specialized in. So all the consumer dental hygiene. You could have like a small pops of toothpaste and mouthwash and that, the monthly supply of floss, and then a lot of different things that would come up in that box. That's one thing. And then the other, well, since you've been talking about software the whole time, we also have an app that is in the development right now to be able to, through your saliva, to understand your health problem and your hygiene problem, and to put that in a blockchain, so that everyone would kind of like get its own, health blockchain. So we have quite some different projects that are in the pipeline. Right now the focus is on, getting Brushette out there. Wow,
that's super interesting. I will be sure to, I'll link to everything that we've talked about so far. I'll definitely keep an eye out for this app, because blockchain is like the new hotness, right?
Yeah.
Now I do like to ask my non-web development guests, right? People who have a product, but they're not necessarily web developers. What are you using for your website, and what would you say is the hardest thing about developing a website from your point of view?
Well, I've done I've done a few startups before that were software oriented, so I'm not complete, but we're not using we're using a custom e-commerce CMS. It's called Zano. And to develop the website, I'm just opening XD and then working wireframes and then giving it to my designer and then to the dev team. So it's a regular e-commerce website. There is nothing really amazing code-wise behind it. You know what I'm saying? There is nothing crazy that the app is supposed to do. I can't say that we've been facing a lot of difficulties in the website so far. So
cool. Well, I'm glad, right? I mean, when I got into the game, it was making an e-commerce website was like the gold standard. It was hard. You hired the real professionals for that, and nowadays, right. I mean, with Zano, I've never heard of it, but I'm definitely going to research it after this. Or like WooCommerce or Shopify, you can have an online e-commerce store in an hour or so. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, we are coming up on time, and I do want to ask you my favorite question, which is, do you have any trade secrets for us?
That's a good question. Do I have a trade secret for you? I can certainly make an open invitation for everyone on the show who want to reach out and want to tour factory in Shenzhen. I'll be happy to like that. That's probably the best place where you could find the trade secret. Other than that, I wouldn't there is really no secret in there is no secret in the product. There is no secret in what we're doing. Everything is kind of open. So other than showing you exactly like the manufacturing part and what's being cooked for the future, those are the only trade secret that I'll be able to happily share.
Well, that's really cool. If I'm ever out there, I will take you up on that offer. Because I've never been on I've never been on an honest to goodness manufacturing floor before. So very interesting to see. Go ahead.
What's interesting? Yeah, sorry, I'm cutting you off. What's interesting is that when I think the hardware software startup are really getting it kind of like you already have difficulties when you're doing a software startup with deadlines with everything. Hardware is just adding more difficulties, but I think at the end of the day, if they get along well, if the team is is able to put them out in a nice fashion together, I think there are a lot of value software and hardware together. If they can work together, I think it can be very valuable.
That's fantastic. And that is a great way to end the show, though I do want to ask, Mihran, where can people find you?
Where can people find me? Well, I'm an email away, Mihran@brushette.com.
All right. Awesome. I will be sure to link that and all of the stuff that we talked about today in the show notes. Mihran, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me, Joe.
Thanks so much for Mihran for joining me today. Things I loved about this episode, how he talked about how he sits on the assembly line in factories in China at different stages of creation to understand how everything is made. I love how he talked about getting the first MVP, the minimum viable product. He talks about how he kind of answers these questions. Is there a product? Can you make a profit for creating physical products, which generally cost a lot more than creating software products in the beginning? And he says at the end of the day that profit margins are important. I liked how he talked about his website. I always like hearing about websites that are not built on top of WordPress and kind of the reasoning why. And his plans for the future, which include things like an app, blockchain for health, which is blockchain is a little bit of a buzzword, but it's also an incredibly cool and important technology moving forward for a whole lot of things. So I think that's pretty cool. I like his outlook on business, and I love a lot of the advice he gave us. So I hope you enjoyed this episode as well. My question of the week for you is, have you ever considered building a physical product? Let me know by emailing me, joe@howibuilt.it, or by letting me know on Twitter @jcasabona. So to continue our conversation from last week, I talked about how I built the first iteration of my podcasting course. I also talked about how I made a grave mistake in assuming that people just wanted to buy a course on how to make the website. It turns out, based on a lot of the feedback I've gotten, that people want the whole process. What microphone should they buy? How do they set up that microphone? How do they record? And the whole nine. So I've decided to take that course and expand it to answer all of those questions. So last week I talked about how I built the course as far as just focusing on the website. Focusing on the website is now just a small section, or will be a small section of this course. And the new goal of the course, the previous goal of the course was launch a website and submit to iTunes. The overall goal is now record a podcast, launch it, and submit it to iTunes. So I dug deep and I thought, what were the questions that I had when I first started podcasting? And of course, they are the questions that I get the most often. What microphone do I buy? How do I record? Where should I upload it? How do I build an audience? Is artwork that important? How do I figure out a name? And so the new outline for this course has all of that stuff. The new course is going to have videos on, I bought the microphone that I recommend, and I'm going to record how to hook it up to your computer, do a test, and make that first recording. I'm going to show students other software besides just web-based software. How to record with QuickTime and GarageBand or Audacity. Audacity, more likely, because I want this to appeal to more than just Mac users. And so those are the things that I'm rebuilding in the podcasting course. And I came to a very important conclusion. I might have mentioned this in a previous episode in this mini-series, but the reason that I didn't do this at first was because other people like Pat Flynn and John Lee Dumas already have this covered. But what I didn't realize was that they don't have it covered cheaply and affordably. And what they have that I can't possibly offer is their own time. And that's what a lot of people are buying. If people are just buying the knowledge, I think my course is going to be the best option for them because it's going to be the most affordable. They still get my time, and they get access to a deeper wealth of knowledge in the areas of website creation, site building, and the more technical aspects of things. And that's, I look up to, especially Pat Flynn. I think he's an excellent resource teacher, podcaster, and business owner. And he has knowledge that I don't have, I may never have, in the areas of business and building an audience. But I believe I'm a little bit more technical than him. And so that's what I bring to the table, and I can do it in a different manner. And that's the thing that I need to remember. So as I build out part 2 of this course, or maybe the course revised, those are the things that I'm focusing on. The new goal for the student is record, launch, and submit a podcast, and not just launch a website and submit your podcast. So that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked this episode, be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps people discover the show. And until next time, get out there and build something.